a lot of times we see on our social media feed, like, how it was going, or how it's going, right? So about 15 years ago today, not quite, in April of 2010, this was how it was going. But this is not how it began. How does it begin for your big journey? How do you go and be bold? I think it takes three things in all of our lives. I think we have to always, always be curious. I think we have to challenge ourselves every single day. And then, of course, to be bold, you have to be courageous. So with those three ingredients, that's how it began. In 1980, my parents, who were both teachers, my dad had been a science teacher and my mom had been a high school math teacher, had two little girls, and they were constantly taking us to museums or to planetariums. And so my sister and I were going to be in STEM, even if we weren't in STEM. And in 1983, we were also watching television when Sally Ride became the first American woman in space. Not the first woman, that was Valentina Tereshkova almost 20 years earlier, but we didn't know about her. But we did know about Sally, and so when she flew and my teacher asked, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" it was now possible for me to believe that I could become an astronaut. So I made that papier-mâché doll of myself. But you can't just dream about being an astronaut to become an astronaut. And I didn't know how you became an astronaut. It, of course, would involve many years of studying and opportunities that my parents did help provide. So my parents sent me to space camp in April of 1990. And I had a blast with my peers. Of course, we launched rockets. We pretended like we were astronauts. We served as if we were on mission control. And we also learned about Hubble, the space telescope, because in April of 1990, the vehicle Discovery was bringing Hubble into space. So when I came back from camp, I made this model of Discovery, because you sometimes need a physical reminder of what your big dreams are. And this was mine when days got tough, as we know they do in middle and high school. And also, Space Camp helped me understand the real things I would need to do to be able to work at NASA. And of course, it would mean I would continue being involved in STEM activities, not only at school, but also on my weekends when I identified bugs for Science Olympiad, and I turned trash into a musical instrument, and we were taking second at state. What eventually got me to Washington State was that I decided to go to a small school in the middle of nowhere where I could run cross country and track and also study. And that school was Whitman College. And at first I thought I would be like my mom and study math. And I did still study math, but I didn't make it my major. Instead, I took an Intro to Geology course, and I was hooked. I loved looking at the rocks of the past to help me understand processes of the past, present, and future so I could solve problems of the future. And of course, I had fun internships while I was there. And I had a plan, right? You've heard all of us. Our plans turned out exactly as we expected? No. But in 1997, as I was graduating from Whitman, my plan was that I was going to take 2 years and teach in Kazakhstan for the Peace Corps. Then I was come home, get my master's and PhD in geology because I wanted to work at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And then that would be part of NASA, and then I could apply to be an astronaut. But in the fall of 97, when I was getting ready to go off to the Peace Corps in Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan was deemed unstable, and I no longer had a job, and I didn't have a graduate school, and I was back in my parents' basement in Colorado. And I didn't know what I was going to do. But I knew I couldn't stay there. So I pivoted. And I pivoted to teaching because I knew what my parents had done, and because I was going to teach English as a second language. And I went to Central Washington University. I got my teaching degree, and I became a high school science teacher. In my astronomy class, which I created, one of my very curious students asked, how do astronauts go to the bathroom in space? That is one heck of an important engineering question, and I didn't know the answer. But I am curious too, and so I looked it up. And in looking up the answer to how astronauts go to the bathroom in space, which, by the way, is one of the most popular questions ever asked to astronauts, I found that answer on NASA's website. It had a good explanation of the space shuttle toilet, and they also said they were hiring teachers as part of the astronaut corps of 2004. Oh my God. They were hiring teachers to become astronauts. I had to apply. So that takes courage, right? You have to apply to do the big things you want to do. And in that application process, yes, I was one of 35 teachers that was brought down to Johnson Space Center along with 70 other candidates that were all applying to become astronauts. And during the week of lots of medical tests and lots of performance and aptitude tests, I did have to take this picture of the shuttle toilet. Now, I want to point out that the shuttle actually had adapters for women to use the toilet in space. But the space station toilet was created by the Russians, and it would be 20 years, and I helped consult on this toilet. It would be 20 years before a toilet on the space station was actually made for both men and women. So sometimes we have to keep pushing and pushing forward. Anyway, yes, you know, I became a part of the astronaut corps in 2004. It was exciting. Astronauts have to remain curious, but of course, we were super challenged. Our first training, and this is for like all astronauts going back to the Mercury astronauts, we do survival training. They had obviously done it with their military career. We work together in teams, and we have to do water survival training. And I'll tell you, this is some of my least favorite training, but it was all worth it, because we got to fly in T-38 jets just about once a week. This is a great vehicle for experiencing real risk and learning how to manage that as a team. And of course, we work as teams over and over and over again. I learned the space shuttle systems. So for like over a year, I just lived and breathed the space shuttle. I would go into the simulators on my weekends. I would make a model out of cardboard and practice in my basement. I was learning the space shuttle. And we had performance tests and written tests. Now, of course, we're using other vehicles to get to the space station, but I also had to learn that vehicle as well. The other challenges we do as astronauts, we get to do underwater training. And I point this out because, as we heard from Stephanie, it is not easy being a mother, and I didn't speak up. My daughter is 4 months old there. No woman should be doing spacewalk training for 4 to 6 hours in that suit. But I didn't know to raise my voice because I was already behind my male colleagues. And oh, by the way, there were only 3 women in my class, and I was the one that was the mother at the time. Anyway, that girl is 18 years old, and she's going to graduate from high school. So it turned out okay. And the work I did in the pool also turned out okay because I became part of the spacewalk team on our mission. Astronauts also train on the robotic arm, which is a lot like playing video games. It's pretty awesome. And I would also be a part of the robotic arm team, although I didn't fly the space station one that's being used in this picture. In addition, astronauts have to keep themselves healthy. We have to work out daily. For the people on board the space station, that means 2 hours per day because they have many months to be up there. And finally, I was assigned to a mission. So in April of 2010, the little girl who dreamed about flying in space and built the vehicle of discovery, almost 20 years to the day, flew on the vehicle Discovery. We can do difficult things, but we have to be curious. We have to challenge ourselves. And then we have to go have fun, right? I love being Superwoman. I love looking back at Earth. 16 sunrises and sunsets a day, the auroras, the beautiful Milky Way. It was amazing to live and work in space. But I couldn't stay there forever, and we came back home on April 20th of 2010, landing back in Florida. But the journey doesn't stop there. If there are people in this room that want to go and fly in space, you now have more opportunities to do that, because we're going back to the moon, this time in the program named after Apollo's sister, Artemis. And we're going with many other countries in partnerships, and we're going with companies right here in the greater Seattle area. Next year, we'll see Artemis crew fly. They won't land on the moon, but they will go the furthest that they've gone ever in our solar system. So I want you to be curious. I want you to be challenged. And of course, I want you to be courageous. Go do your bold dreams.